feels good to be a gangster.
Hello, this is Lucky. I am here with my guest host, my life partner, my man love, Saku Ear. Saku
Hello.
Ear, say hello to people.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Can you confirm that this is the first time that we've spoken?
Yep.
You liar! We've spoken many times. We are here to preview UFC on Fuel TV, China, Franklin versus Lee. My goal for this is to ensure that we spend as little time in preparation of doing this. So no facts, no research, and no production value whatsoever. You're just going to get two idiots rambling on about mixed martial arts. So this is the first event in China. And as such, there are certain things that are pretty funny about it. One is that it starts at a very unusual time for the United States.
5 a.m. for me.
I'm in Australia, so it's actually going to be the first event ever where my kids will be asleep and I can actually watch it in peace.
That's awesome.
The thing that's great, when you have kids, while you're watching MMA, they're actually duplicating the moves on each other. So my youngest son actually got the older one in a rear naked choke. It was pretty awesome. He didn't tap, though. He had to go to sleep. That's what happens when you're brave.
That's awesome.
So with China, there are two things in here that are going on that I think are pretty funny. First off, they've loaded the card with Asian fighters. Not Chinese fighters, Asian fighters. We're talking Koreans. We've got some Japanese dudes. In fact, the undercard, the prelims are loaded with Japanese guys. You've got a guy from Guam. You've got a Vietnamese dude. Here's the thing, though, is I don't know if Dana White is a moron or if he's a genius, because I doubt that China is going to cheer for Asian fighters just because they're Asian, particularly the Japanese fighters, because China and Japan don't like each other. So I think they're just sort of putting Asian faces on there with the hope of saying, well, all Asians are Asians. What do you think?
And then they got well, I thought it was kind of funny how they got that Korean ring girl. It's like, are the Chinese people going to be super excited about some Korean ring girl? And they couldn't find a Chinese ring girl? I mean, come on. There's over a billion people in China, and they couldn't find one hot Chinese lady to put in a ring? I don't understand that.
I'm pretty sure that if the UFC wants to get hot ring girls, they should come to MMA Share, because there's a very high standard, apparently. Trey Black, a.k.a. MV6, you need to contact Dana White and be the ring girl big booty picker.
It's definitely true. I mean, apparently they're all having sex with Jessica Alba over there because apparently that lady isn't hot at all, I guess.
Well, good for them. Because me, I'm not. I'm not having sex at all. The other thing about these regional cards, whenever they come to a new market, is there's a lot of fighters that are on the card that shouldn't be in the UFC. So the level of fights, the level of skill, the technicality of the fighters is really low. That means sometimes it's really exciting because you've got two idiots just slugging away at each other's faces. Other times it means they gas in the first round because they're so hyped and excited.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I don't have anything I want to comment on any of the prelim fights. Not a single one of these guys looks exciting, although I will say I was really shocked that a guy named John Lineker is Brazilian. What do you have to say?
Well, I have to say a couple of things. The Cam Mizugaki fight actually interests me. He's gone 4-5 in his last 9. He lost one, basically like that. See if he can get back on track. I think Jeff Woodland was supposed to be fighting Henan Barao, I believe, at UFC 148. That was a ridiculous matchup. But I think that Takeda Mizugaki will take this fight. I've always been a Takeda Mizugaki fan. I think he can take it. Then there's the Urishitani flyweight match, which is actually pretty important. Urishitani, as you guys know, lost to Joseph Benavidez on UFC FX. And he lost by knockout. But before that fight, he went on a five-fight winning streak. So we may be looking at a rising flyweight in the ranks. We'll see. We'll see how these Japanese fighters do. Ricky Fukuda is also on there. He's got a chin of granite. Fought Costa Philippou in his last fight. Took a huge beating for 3 rounds. He looks pretty good, but yeah, no real big talent on the undercard this time. We got a Korean fighter making his UFC debut, but that's pretty much it for the Facebook cards.
This is what I expect from a guy whose name is Sakuira. Look at the Japanese love, in-depth, precise knowledge. You're rattling off names. I'm like, Riki Fukada. Isn't that a guy in the Magic Tiki Room in Disneyland?
No, he's actually a pretty good fighter. He fought Steve Cantwell, beat him, lost to Nick Ring. He's 2-1 in the UFC, but he always puts on a good show. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Let's move on to the main card.
All right, sounds good.
So the first fight on the main card is Zhang versus John Tuck. You got a Chinese fighter that looks like he's 65 years old and owns a bakery versus literally a Mack truck from Guam.
Yeah, true.
Have you seen pictures of this guy, John Tuck? He's
I've actually seen a couple of his fights. I saw him on the Ultimate Fighter and Ultimate Fighter Live. He was eliminated in the first fight. He was the guy, I don't know if anybody saw it, lost to Ala Quinta, and he got a broken toe. His toe was like up in the air.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He fought all 2 rounds with that broken toe. He has this pretty sweet nickname, Super Saiyan. Not gonna just say that's one of the coolest nicknames in MMA. I don't know much about him. He has 3 wins by KO, 3 wins by sub. Nobody really of note at all. But
yeah. He's a guy. This just from looking at him. First off, he's from Guam. You know, a hotbed of mixed martial arts. Secondly,
absolute hotbed.
When you're built like he's built, that's not functional mass. That's sexy beach mass. So my suspicion is he's going to gas early if it goes very long. But looking at Zhang, Zhang from his previous fights looks like he's coming in with a will to fight, but without any tools in the shed at all.
Basically, all he is a guillotine. He's a guillotine show.
He's a token Chinese guy, the only one on the card.
I do think that he will come in, as I do, with a lot of willpower to win. I think he can take this just because John Tuck really has no experience at all. Chia Chen Zhang has fought in the UFC and the WEC. 12 out of his 15 wins have come by submission. He has other submissions, but especially in his last fight, he mainly, or not his last fight, the fight before he got knocked completely unconscious on the first Japan card, he was mainly just looking for guillotine submission for 3 rounds straight, and he just got.
Here's the thing about Zhang: he's only won 1 fight out of 3 in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, and he's 34 years old.
Yeah.
Tuck is one of these guys that could be completely overmatched once he steps into the big leagues, but being that he's 6-0 with 6 finishes, you never know. He may just be a talent that hasn't had a chance to really display it yet. I think this is probably an appropriate fight for Tuck, being against the 35-year-old Korean bald guy, or I'm sorry, Chinese bald guy. I predict it'll be a finish. I predict
really?
Tuck will win. Yeah, I think Tuck will finish him.
Well, I'm going with Zhang on this one. I think he just has too much will to win in front of the home crowd, and I think he has the skills to finish him, probably by submission. I'd say guillotine. That's my call on that fight.
Well, you're a loser. All right, next fight: Alex Caceres versus Kyung Ho Kang.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like my Korean pronunciation? It's pretty badass, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Thanks. So Bruce Leroy versus Korean guy. Bruce Leroy is 7-5, and Kang is 11-6. I'm predicting that Bruce Leroy, if he comes out dressed like Bruce, you know, in the yellow jumpsuit, I predict that he'll get some love. I predict he gets some hometown love. Well, you got to remember Macau is in southern China, so it's really close to Vietnam and really far away from Korea. And it's actually just across the river from Hong Kong, which is where Bruce Lee is from. So if he comes out as an homage to Bruce Lee, I bet you he gets some love.
I don't know. I think it might be the opposite. I think he might get some boos because he's a black man from America.
You don't understand something about Chinese people. Chinese people are the most loving, non-racist people. I can't even continue. I'm sorry. Yeah, Asians are pretty racist, but I'm telling you that if he comes out and does a little flash, you have to think that these people have seen UFCs before. It's not like they're at some tribe like, oh, well, look, mixed martial arts. So they probably know who Caceres is.
Yeah, true.
But that aside, let's talk about the fight. I don't know anything about this Korean guy. I'm coming to you because you're Mr. Asia, even though you're
to
6'3",
honest,
Washingtonian.
To be honest, man, I don't really know much about this guy. All I know is his UFC debut. He's 11-6. He's lost to nobody and won against nobody. So
yeah, he's been fighting in a promotion called Road FC, which is entirely a South Korean promotion. So he should be completely overmatched, even though Caceres has sort of an up and down record.
But to be honest, I'm going with Alex Caceres all the way here.
Yeah, I think I am too. I think Caceres in his last fight looked light years better than he did in Tough. Demetrio Page.
What I realized is after his Jimmy Hedges fight, when he got grapple fucked, he made a complete change. He looked amazing in the stand-up and even better on the ground. His bottom game on the ground is incredible, actually. The Edwin Figueroa fight really was his coming out party, I thought, where he was deducted 2 points from Herb Dean and lost a split decision, but still completely dominated him all 3 rounds. Yeah. He just, all around, he just looks amazing. I have become a Bruce Leroy fan after Tough, which I didn't really like him very much, but he changed my mind after he proved himself in the octagon. So I'm going with Alex Caceres on this one.
Yeah, I am too. I think he's got tons of potential. He's got tons of physical potential in terms of his speed. He's got great stand-up. I think he's got an underrated ground game. Let's see how many times we can say that in this podcast. I'm Caceres all the way. Okay, next fight. I will pause for you to fap off to this. Gomi versus Danzig. Gomi is currently 33-8-1, and Mac Danzig is 21-9-1. They are combined by far the 2 most experienced fighters on the card collectively. Rich Franklin, obviously, but you go ahead. I'll just turn over the floor to you. You can talk about Gomi.
All right, I will first say what the odds makers are putting this fight at. Gomi is actually the underdog, plus 205, and Mac Danzig is minus 245. So if you put up $100, you will get $205 back if you bet on Gomi. You have to put $245 on Mac Danzig to get $100 back. So,
that, ladies and gentlemen, is what's known as the money line. Thank you, Saku.
Yes. So, Takanori Gomi, what can I say about this man? He's a legend of the sport. He definitely has gone a little bit downhill in the past. I would like to think that he can retain his past glory, but I'm not sure if Mac Danzig is the right opponent for him to do that. It is a nice step down in competition for Gomi, because he had been fighting the likes of Nate Diaz and Clay Guida and those kind of people. Let's see if he can avoid getting submitted by Mac Danzig, because Mac Danzig has an underrated ground game. And
ding, ding, ding.
If he can avoid that, he could win. Gomi's striking has become a lot more rudimentary since Pride, which is very, very weird. He's become mainly a brawler as opposed to his very technical past. But Mac Danzig, he can't really be forced into a brawl with Gomi because he can get knocked out by Gomi, in my opinion. Mac Danzig has been pretty inactive in the last few years. 2-2 in his last 4. He's dealt with a chest injury that's made him forcing him out of 2 fights, actually. I think he needs to grind Gomi down, take him down, and submit him. And I think he can't get caught in a brawl, or else he will lose this fight. But I am going with Mac Danzig because I think he will take this by submission. By decision or submission, probably decision. I feel bad saying that because I love myself some Gomi, but I think Gomi he's reaching the end of his career, and I don't think Mac Danzig is the right opponent for him.
Somewhere Arton just passed out. I agree with you in terms of Gomi. What I like to call it is the rampage effect. You've got guys that actually had a little bit more diversity in their striking, and then as they've gotten older, they've gone completely to power shots. That's what Rampage does. That's all Rampage does, and I think that's basically what Gomi's left with. I think Gomi is absolutely washed up. He won in Japan, but let's face it, it was Japan. There was a theory, I can't remember who it was, I think it was Phil Baroni of all people, that said that Japanese fighters do poorly fighting in the West because of the time difference. Is that right?
I heard that going west is actually harder than going east for some reason. I don't know why.
Yes, that is absolutely true. I've flown from Australia back to Los Angeles several times. Whenever you get there, it's basically like daylight. It feels like daylight the whole trip back. So you're awake the whole time and you're just miserable. So I would agree that Gomi probably will be able to check off that disadvantage fighting in China. But I think Mac Danzig it's going to be a long, boring decision in Danzig's favor. That's my prediction. Although Gomi has surprisingly shown to be extremely susceptible to submissions, which is weird, I think, for a Japanese fighter.
Absolutely. What I think is weird is Gomi may have won his last fight, but he did not look pretty doing it. He got dropped a few times, and he was fighting in Japan. So I think really it has come down to, I think he has just gotten more rudimentary with his striking. I mean, he leads with his head. He puts his head out, and his head is in front of his hands. It just looks weird. I don't know what he's doing, but let's see what he does. He might be able to win this, but I kind of doubt it.
Well, at least he doesn't fight like Keith Jardine. I have a theory about Japan. Now, there was a very angry thread, a couple months ago that said that Japanese fighters are overrated or something to that effect. I don't think they're overrated. I just think that they had a golden generation probably right around the advent of Pride. And since then, Japan has moved away from MMA, and now there are no more fighters. So I think the well is empty in terms of up-and-comers. Now, that doesn't mean that there's, not prospects. But before, I mean, you had Sakurai, Sakuraba, Gomi, all these great names, all these legends. But I think what people tend to do is they still remember the name and their deeds, and they don't actually take an assessment of where the fighter is. Like Rampage is still a big draw, even though he is completely washed up. And the Rampage lobbying for that fight against Franklin, that is the worst fight I could imagine. I mean, it would be so boring, other than the fact that maybe Rampage would knock him out.
Yeah. One thing I kind of think, in Pride, it was a lot harder to get cut as opposed to it was in the UFC. And I think the Japanese fighters, when they're fighting in Pride, would really go for it. Like, you have people like Matsui, who don't have a very good record, but in my opinion, one of the most exciting fighters of all time. And now they're just a lot more tentative inside the octagon, so they just don't put on as great of a show and end up getting cut after a few losses. So I think that might also have something to do with it.
That's a very good point, and you can see this in your namesake's record. He was rewarded for his courage and bravery in that Sakuraba would try anything. He would fight anyone, and he lost a lot, but he was fighting, I think I did the numbers, he was fighting on average opponents that were 50 pounds, 55 pounds heavier than he was.
Absolutely.
But because he tried, he was honored for it. Whereas in the UFC, in today's incarnation of Dana White's UFC, if you fight and fail, regardless of whether or not you're popular, you have a very short leash to do that. And what's even more concerning is that if you don't take last-minute fights to help him out, then he gets mad and he wants to punish you. So Sonnen takes all these fights at the last minute, where all these other fighters are being cautious and being protective of their records and their marketability. And now Dana White is sort of sending two messages. You know what I mean? Don't lose, or I'll cut you. Even though we're a huge promotion, we have lots of events, and we need more fighters than ever. But at the same time, rush into any fight that I want to put you against. So, I mean, that's not really fair. I completely agree with your point. Let's move on to the next one. Donghyun Kim versus Paulo Thiago. Donghyun Kim is sitting at 15-2-1. Paulo Thiago, that's hard to say, 14-4. Paulo Thiago, very famously, is a police officer, special forces SWAT guy in Brazil. They say that every single time, as if he somehow gets to bring in a submachine gun into the octagon.
Yes. Here are the lines for the fight. Paulo Thiago is the underdog at plus 195. Donghyun Kim minus 235. I'm gonna have to go Donghyun Kim in this fight, probably by decision. Paulo Thiago, as you guys will remember, was the man to welcome Sierra Bahadizada to the UFC. He got brutally knocked out in one of the best knockouts of the last few months. Paulo Thiago has been kind of off and on recently. He had a lot of subs early in his career and relies a lot on his striking now, which I think he should really be going back to going for the subs. Dong Hyun Kim, on the other hand, is a great judoka. If he could implement a great game plan, I think he can muscle Thiago around, grind him out, tire him out, and win a decision or a late TKO. He must watch out for Thiago's subs and knockout power, though. Dong Hyun Kim is extremely athletic, a great talent. He may have gotten knocked out by Carlos Condit and suffered a rib injury against Damian Maia in his last fight. But I really think he is a top 10 welterweight. I truly believe that. I think I have always loved Dong Hyun Kim. I love his style. I love anybody that actually uses their judo in an MMA match because it's very, very rare. And I think he uses it really well. And I think he takes this by decision.
I think he probably takes it by decision too in a runaway for the boringest fight of the night. I hate judo in MMA, and I know that I'm going to catch some shit. I hate it. I really hate it. I think it's worthless. I know you do. I know Arton, a.k.a. Pride, is going to have a heart attack when he hears me say that. But if you look at all the judo people, I think the only ones that ever really pull it off to any level of success were the Armenian ones, particularly the guy's name escapes me, the psycho crazy Karo Parisian. Sexyama pulled off a couple of great takedowns in the Japan event, some of those sweeps, but that's all he did. I think if your primary skill set is judo, I think the analogy was you can sit at the table, but you never be invited to dance at the MMA party.
I think personally, if your main thing is judo, you have some sort of a sickness where you can't use your judo in MMA. Really,
not only translates.
And Carl Parisian are the only people to actually use their judo on a regular basis. I think if the judokas went more towards using their judo on a regular basis, they could be more successful. But for some reason, they just don't use it. That's just my opinion.
So you've got Kim, I've got Kim on that one too. Next one, Thiago Silva versus Stanislav Nedkov. Thiago 14-2, Stanislav 12-0. I love Thiago Silva, and I know he got caught for doping or whatever, but I'm convinced it was because his back was injured and he couldn't train. Prior to his Lyoto Machida loss, I thought he was the best prospect in the light heavyweight division. Loved him. Absolutely loved his demeanor. He's got the best stare down, right up there with the two Diaz boys. I love the throat slash. I love his shudo box style. I love him. But I am terrified of this Nedkov kid because the guy looks like he's got a head made of a bowling ball taped to 2 bricks. He's a freak of nature, and he's 12-0, and I'm sure he's wanted in his home country for manslaughter.
The betting lines on this fight, Nedkov is the underdog in this fight, plus 275. Thiago Silva, he's a pretty big favorite at minus 335. I personally am going to go with Nedkov in this fight. I'm going to go with the underdog, and I would say it's a safe bet if you want to make a little bit of money. I personally think that Nedkov, although his record looks like he hasn't fought anybody good, he's actually fought Kevin Randleman, Travis View, and actually knocked out Luis Cade in his last fight. He loves a brawl. He has big power, and he loves to bull rush. If he does get in a brawl with Thiago Silva, that is also Thiago Silva's favorite thing. This is my lock for fight of the night. I personally think this is going to be an awesome fight, an awesome fight.
I think this card from top to bottom is pretty mediocre, but I think it is extremely top heavy. I think personally, I love the Franklin Lee fight, which we'll get to in a second. But this is going to be, I hope, an epic fight. Of course, when we say that, Thiago Silva will dance around the cage and throw leg jabs the whole night or something and explode the internet. If it does go into a brawl, I'd say Nedkov has the substantial advantage in power, which is saying a lot because I think Silva's got tons of it. if it goes beyond mid-second round, or if it goes to the ground, I have to give a slight edge to Silva. It just depends on which Silva shows up. Is he in shape? Is his back hurting? Is he sharp? Or if he's not, I think he could be in trouble. Hopefully, he's playing the bongos on the back of Nedkov, just like he did against Vera. I would love that. I love Silva. But I have a bad feeling about this fight.
That is what, in my opinion, Silva's game plan needs to be take Stanislav Nedkov down. I don't think he should get a new brawl with him. I think he needs to take him down, use his underrated ground game, and attack him from the top. Attack him from the top. Although I don't think he can tire out Stanislav Nedkov because, in my opinion, Thiago Silva has always shown, like, it wasn't too bad, but a little bit of a bad gas tank. I mean, you saw him gas in the Gustafsson fight.
And that's a direct result of not being able to train at the level he needs to because of his back and other injuries. So
true, that was his last fight. So do you think it's gotten any better since? I don't, to be honest.
I'm going to pray to Brazilian Jesus that it is true and that Silva comes out like a warrior. But I have a bad feeling about this fight. I am completely emotionally compromised and can't pick a winner.
If Silva wins this, it's going to be either by decision or taking him out in the second or third round by TKO.
Or a flash knockout.
Yeah, true. We haven't seen Nedkov's chin, really. But I'm going with Nedkov.
So you're going with Nedkov. I will go with Nedkov, too, just because I don't want to jinx Thiago. Finally, we've got Rich Franklin versus Gung Lee. Now, quick note, my wife is Vietnamese. I live around Vietnamese people. His name is not Kung, it's Gung. That C sound has a G sound. Just for all you internet people out there, Gung Lee. I think, I don't know tell me what the odds are.
The odds here are Kung Lee is the underdog, plus 250. Rich Franklin is the favorite at minus 300. So yeah, basically 3-1.
Rich Franklin, 29-6-1. Gung Lee is 8-2. I think that this is a gimme fight for Franklin, and I'll tell you why. I think Gung Lee has great kicks, but I think his stand-up is average. It's a strange thing to say, but his boxing is terrible. Watch him in his fights. When he gets pressed, watch his head movement. He goes straight back, and he leans his head back, putting his chin straight up, and he sort of paws with his hands out there. His kicks, beautiful, great. But he fights at sort of a Muay Thai kickboxing pace, which is you stand there in front of your guy, throw a kick, stand there in front of your guy, throw a kick. He does not have cardio like MMA. He does not have a wrestler's cardio, let's put it that way. The other thing is, Franklin's 38, and this is going to be probably the only fight in his career where he fights an older opponent. Lee is 40.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, he's 40. And I think he's giving up a substantial size difference. Lee's only 5'8", or 5'10". I think Franklin's 6 foot. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I think Lee will look good in the first round. He'll win the first round. He always wins the first round, and he will fade, and Franklin will win.
Fair enough.
And that, again, it hurts my heart to say that because I want Lee to win.
I also want Lee to win because I think he's a very exciting fighter, but I also agree that Rich Franklin will win, although I don't really think it's a gimme fight for him. I think this is actually a pretty tough fight for Rich Franklin. For Kung Lee to win, he must be technical. He must pick his shots. He can't let Franklin get comfortable, because when Franklin gets comfortable, he gets in his groove, starts mixing up those shots. He can't let him implement his game plan. Kung Lee can't let Rich Franklin implement his game plan. He can't let Rich get into punching range. Kung Lee needs to stay in kicking range and not let Rich Franklin implement those straight punches. I think he could honestly take Rich down near the end of the rounds because he actually has an underrated wrestling and an underrated ground game. Kung Lee has shown very bad gas tank problems in the past, most recently against Vanderlei. Basically, the only way I can see Kung Lee winning this is by a flash knockout or by maintaining the outside distance and landing kicks only, and therefore probably making it a pretty boring fight. Little fun fact about Kung Lee: he actually beat Brian Ebersol in a kickboxing fight. Pretty crazy. For Rich Franklin to win, which I think he will, although they both like to fight on the outside, Rich Rich is a puncher, so he punches he has to stay within the puncher's range and not let Lee get on the outside into kicking range.
I disagree.
Really?
I disagree.
So?
Yeah, here is Rich Franklin's strategy to succeed for victory. Mm-hmm. Round 1, he gets into Greco. He stalls Lee against the wall for as much of the round as he can. Round 2, finish. That's as simple as that. Lee will be gassed by round 1 if he has to do a cardio battle against the cage. Absolutely. Franklin is the bigger fighter. His cardio is always tops in the division. I think if he stalls using his strength and size, Lee will gas, and when Lee gasses, that's how he lost against Scott Smith in their first fight. That's how he lost against Silva.
Yeah, that's true. I think Rich Franklin also implement the clinch as well, the Muay Thai clinch. I think he can do some good punishment with knees, but I don't know if he wants to get into that with Kung Lee. Basically, I think that Rich Franklin has a really good chance in this fight to tire out Kung Lee. But the thing is, Rich has shown chin troubles against great strikers. I think Kung Lee's a pretty great striker. They were actually only against Vitor and Silva, so I kind of doubt this will be a huge issue unless Kung lands a perfect strike. This is Rich Franklin's return to middleweight, and the big question in this fight is, can he make another run at the title before he retires? Which, I don't know, maybe.
I'll say no.
Kenny Rice from Inside MMA tends to think that he can. I don't think so.
No, I think that's probably more of Kenny speaking with his heart. As long as Anderson Silva is there, Rich Franklin's got no chance. And Anderson's going to be there for another 2-3 years. Even if he gets beat, Anderson will always be there in the mix. And Rich Franklin is 38. He's done. He's fighting for he's just fighting for interesting matchups at this point. Who do you got in this fight?
I think he's making interesting matchups. He is definitely the Dana White's man at this point. Pretty much, you can call him to come fight whenever. He is always fun to watch. This is also a chance for fight of the night, but also a chance for a pretty boring fight. I would say Rich Franklin wins this by decision.
I bet that there'll be an easy narrative for Goldberg because I bet Franklin will take some big shots in the first round, some big kicks, and Rogan will be going Taekwondo crazy. And Rich will look like he's on the downside. He may even get bloodied. He cuts pretty easy. And then round 2, round 3 will be completely in Rich's favor. So it'll have an easy narrative, say, look at this comeback fight. But I think if they were to fight 10 times, it would probably be the same story. Gung starts out strong, fades, Rich wins. For me, the most exciting fight, the fight that's got the best chance for an exciting finish is definitely Silva versus Nedkov.
Absolutely. That's my pick for knockout of the night. I think Stanislav Nedkov will take it by knockout. I think it'll also be fight of the night as well. As far as I'm going to have to say for submission of the night, I'm going to go with Tietran Zong. I think he's going to submit John Tuck with the guillotine. They're going to gift it to him. Even if there's a better submission on the card, I think they're going to gift it to him because he is the only Chinese fighter on the card.
I'm going to go out of the box here, and I'm going to give Caceres sub of the night.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think Caceres will get the submission, but I think Tietran, no matter what, if he gets a submission, they're going to give it to him. I believe that. I think they're really, really hyping Tietran up. They really want to get more Chinese fighters in there to grow the market in China, and they're hoping that Tietran can get back on track. That's why they haven't cut him yet, and that's why they're putting him on the main card of this fight card.
Well, there you have it, interwebs. That's our opinion. That's our thoughts. Like I said, we're idiots. What do we know? If you think you know better, and you probably do, let us know. I will be back for the next event, UFC 154, St. Pierre versus Condit, where I'll forego any talk of George St. Pierre and talk about Nick Diaz the whole time. With that, that's Lucky signing off. Saku, say your farewells.
All right. It was nice to talk to you all. Hopefully, don't flavor too hard. Y'all have a great day. See you guys.
Up 365, ayo, 24/7, 'cause real gangsta ass niggas don't sleep. And all I gotta say to you, wanna be, gonna be, cocksucking, pussy, pranksters.